Right from the beginning, the episode starts playing with Daffy Duck in a surprisingly unsettling way. At first, Daffy appears as a confident musketeer, sword fighting with all the energy and swagger you would expect from him. But without warning, the entire background suddenly disappears. The world around him turns into a blank white void. That's when something unusual happens. Daffy stops performing, turns toward the camera, and directly addresses the animator. In most cartoons, characters are unaware they're fictional. They don't acknowledge the audience, let alone the person drawing them. But Daffy suddenly realizes that his entire world is being controlled by someone else, and the animator responds with pure indifference. Instead of restoring the original scene, he replaces it with a completely different background. Daffy tries to adapt, changing costumes and adjusting his performance to fit the new setting, only for the world to change again moments later. Every time Daffy attempts to regain control, the cartoon shifts beneath his feet. That's what makes these scenes so effective. The humor doesn't just come from random visual gags, it comes from watching Daffy slowly realize that the rules of his reality no longer make sense. He can't predict what happens next because someone else is rewriting the world in real time. The more Daffy struggles to keep the cartoon together, the more powerless he becomes. He's no longer acting like the star of the episode. He's acting like someone trapped inside it, and little by little, that confidence starts to crack. By the time the background disappears again, the cartoon has completely shattered the boundary between character and creator. Daffy is no longer just fighting through a scene. He's confronting the terrifying fact that his entire existence depends on somebody who enjoys making him suffer.
Stand back, musketeers! They shall sample my blade! Touche! Musketeers? My guard, my blade. Hey, psst! Whoever's in charge here? The scenery. Where's the scenery? Stand back, musketeers! They shall sample my blade. Okay, have it your way. Daffy Duck, he had a farm, E-I-A-I-O. And on this farm he had an igloo, E-I-E-I-O. Would it be too much to ask if we could make up our minds? Dashing through the snow, through the fields we go, laughing all the way. Farewell to thee, the wind will carry back our sad refrain. One last embrace before we say,
As his frustration grows, Daffy Duck tries to reason with the animator, hoping he can somehow regain control of the cartoon. But before Daffy can finish speaking, the animator does something far worse than changing the background. He erases Daffy completely. For a brief moment, Daffy simply ceases to exist. Then, almost casually, the animator redraws him as an entirely different character, a singing cowboy holding the guitar. That's what makes this scene so disturbing. The animator isn't just changing costumes anymore, he's rewriting Daffy himself. His identity can now be deleted, replaced, and reshaped on command, and the humiliation keeps escalating. When Daffy tries to play the guitar, no sound comes out. He desperately holds up a sign asking for audio, only for the animator to respond with random sound effects and nonsense noises. Even Daffy's voice starts becoming warped and unnatural, as though he's losing control over the way he expresses himself. At this point, the cartoon's reality is starting to completely break down. Daffy finally explodes in anger, screaming at the animator and demanding proper scenery. But the more he protests, the more powerless he looks. Every attempt to push back only invites another punishment. That's the real horror of the short. Daffy now understands that nothing about him is stable anymore. Not his appearance, not his voice, not even his existence. The animator can alter every part of him whenever he wants, and Daffy is forced to keep performing through it. Little by little, the cartoon stops feeling like comedy and starts feeling cruel.
Buster, it may come as a complete surprise to you to find that this is an animated cartoon. And that in animated cartoons they have scenery. And in all the years I... All right, wise guy, where am I? been so humiliated in all my life!
The animator then draws a plain, unfinished background made entirely of simple line art, wanting the scene to feel complete. Daffy Duck asks for some color, but instead of coloring the background, the animator starts painting Daffy himself. Wild patterns and random bright colors are painted across his body, while Daffy angrily yells that the animator should be painting the scenery instead. It's a small gag on the surface, but it changes the nature of the torment completely. Up until now, the animator has mostly been manipulating the world around Daffy. Now he's directly altering Daffy's body. Frustrated, Daffy demands to know where the rest of his body went. In response, the animator redraws him as a bizarre, mismatched creature with a flower for a head and a screwball flag attached to his tail. Even Daffy seems unsettled by what he's become. As he wanders around in this distorted form, he nervously wonders whether he's still fulfilling his contract, almost like an actor realizing he's losing control of his own performance. The animator then draws a mirror in front of him. The second Daffy sees his reflection, he explodes in outrage. And once again, the animator's response is immediate. Both Daffy and the mirror are erased from existence. The cartoon barely pauses before humiliating him again. Daffy is redrawn as a sailor and begins singing the Song of the Marines, only for the animator to suddenly surround him with an ocean, despite never drawing the boat. Daffy instantly drops into the water and washes ashore on a tiny island. Even the camera itself starts turning against him. Desperate to regain some sense of control, Daffy asks for a close-up. The camera zooms in so tightly that only a tiny fragment of him is visible. Furious, Daffy assaults the animator, and the camera pushes in even farther until nothing remains except his enraged eyes filling the screen. By this point, the cartoon has stopped feeling playful and started feeling openly hostile. The animator no longer treats Daffy like a character. He treats him like raw material, something that can be stretched, erased, reshaped, or mocked at any moment. Every complaint Daffy makes only leads to another humiliation, and every attempt to regain authority makes him look smaller and more helpless. What makes these scenes so effective is that Daffy slowly begins to lose any stable sense of who he is supposed to be. His appearance changes constantly. The rules of reality keep shifting. Even his own reflection can't be trusted anymore. The cartoon turns identity itself into something fragile, and underneath all the comedy, there's something surprisingly cruel about watching Daffy realize that none of this is ever going to stop.
Look, Mac, just what's going on around here? Let's get organized, How about some scenery? That's dandy. Ho ho, that's rich, I'll say. Now how about some color, stupid? Hey! Not me, you slop artist! Well, where's the rest of me? It isn't as though I haven't lived up to my contract, goodness knows. And goodness knows it isn't as though I haven't kept myself trim, goodness knows. I've done that. That's strange. All of a sudden, I don't quite feel like myself. Oh, I feel all right, and yet Hey! You know better than that! Well? Sea picture, hey? I always wanted to do a sea epic. Now, Mr. Rembrandt, if you'll kindly oblige with a little appropriate scenery, over the sea, let's go, men. We're shoving right off, Again.
Daffy Duck tries one last time to reason with the animator. Desperate for some kind of stability, he attempts to calmly talk things out and restore order to the cartoon, but the animator immediately humiliates him again. A heavy black curtain suddenly drops over Daffy, trapping him in darkness. The animator quickly sketches a thin support stick for him to hold it up, but the stick snaps almost instantly, and that tiny moment becomes the breaking point. Daffy erupts into hysterical screaming and completely loses control. In pure frustration, he grabs the background itself and violently tears it apart with his bare hands, as though he's trying to rip his way out of the cartoon. Then things somehow become even crueler. The moment Daffy insists the cartoon should finally begin properly, a giant The End card suddenly appears on screen. Terrified, Daffy desperately shoves it away, refusing to let the story end on someone else's terms. Even now, he's still trying to negotiate. Daffy suggests that he and the animators simply separate and leave each other alone. He even turns toward the audience, apologizing for the chaos before attempting to continue the performance with a nervous dance routine. But the cartoon itself starts falling apart. The film slips out of alignment, and suddenly there are two Daffys standing on screen at the same time. Almost immediately, the two versions begin arguing with each other before descending into a violent fight. It's one of the most important moments in the entire short. Up to this point, the animator has distorted Daffy's world, body, and identity. But here, the cartoon externalizes Daffy's psychological collapse. He is now literally fighting himself. And just as one Daffy throws a punch, the animator casually erases the other from existence. The moment feels strangely disturbing for such a simple gag. One version of Daffy watches another version of himself disappear, as though part of his identity has just been deleted in front of him. By this stage of the cartoon, Daffy barely resembles the confident performer from the opening scene. The constant humiliation, the shifting reality, and the complete lack of control have worn him down emotionally. He's no longer trying to entertain the audience anymore. He's trying to survive the cartoon itself.
Now look, Buster, let's have an understanding. Now what? Brother, what a way to run a railroad. Now, as I was saying... All right, let's get this picture started. No! Listen, pal, let's discuss this thing sanely, huh? Look, I tell you what, you go your way, and I'll go mine. Live and let live, right? Right. Ladies and gentlemen, there will be no further delays, so I shall attempt to entertain you in my own inimitable fashion. Now what? What are you doing down there? Down here? What are you doing up there? Down here. Listen, bud, if you wasn't me, I'd smack you right in the puss. Don't let that bother you, Jack. Okay, buddy, you asked for it.
In the final act of this episode, the animator places Daffy Duck inside an airplane. For a brief moment, Daffy finally seems happy again, flying through the sky with genuine excitement, but the animator immediately ruins it. A mountain is suddenly drawn directly in the plane's path, sending Daffy crashing off screen. Moments later, he reappears still flying through the air, except now the airplane is gone, leaving him suspended behind nothing but the windshield. Even gravity no longer follows normal rules. Daffy tries to escape by parachuting safely to the ground, but the animator replaces the parachute with a massive anvil. Daffy plummets downward and crashes hard into the earth. Dazed and barely functioning, he begins absent-mindedly hammering on the anvil while reciting lines from The Village Blacksmith. Then the animator changes the anvil into an artillery shell. Still disoriented, Daffy strikes it 4 times before it explodes in his face. Furious, Daffy demands that the animator reveal himself. In response, the animator simply draws a door in front of him and slams it shut. Then the camera pulls back and the cartoon reveals its final joke. The animator was Bugs Bunny the entire time, calmly sitting at a drawing desk while controlling every moment of Daffy's suffering. The reveal changes the entire cartoon. Up until this point, the animator has felt almost godlike, an invisible force rewriting reality whenever he wants. But the final punchline reveals that all of Daffy's suffering was essentially a game to Bugs Bunny. Every humiliation, every identity change, every moment of panic existed purely for someone else's amusement. And that's what makes the ending so effective. The cartoon begins with harmless visual gags, but slowly escalates into something far more unsettling. Daffy loses control of his environment, then his appearance, then his role within the cartoon itself. By the end, he's no longer acting like a performer inside a comedy short. He's acting like someone trapped inside a reality that can change without warning. What makes the cartoon so brilliant is that it turns animation itself into the villain. Most cartoons use animation to create fantasy and escapism. Duck Amuck uses it to dismantle reality piece by piece, and by the time the short finally ends, Daffy isn't the same character we met at the beginning. He's exhausted, humiliated, and completely broken down, all while the audience laughs along with it.
Oh, brother, I'm a buzzboy. Uh-oh, time to hit the old silk. Geronimo! Under a spreading chestnut tree, the village smithy stands. The smith mighty, the man is famous, strong and sinewy. And... All right, enough is enough. This is the final, the very, very last straw. Who is responsible for this? I demand that you show yourself! Who are you? Huh?
Am I a stinker?
In the end, that's what makes this episode so memorable. On the surface, it looks like a simple comedy short filled with random gags and cartoon chaos, but underneath the humor is something much stranger, a story about a character slowly losing control of his own reality. What starts as harmless animation gradually becomes an attack on everything that makes Daffy Duck who he is. His world changes without warning. His body is reshaped repeatedly. Even his own voice and identity stop feeling stable. By the end of the cartoon, Daffy isn't just frustrated, he's completely overwhelmed by a reality he can no longer understand or control. And that's why the cartoon still feels so unique today. It doesn't just break the fourth wall, it completely destroys it. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see more deep dives into disturbing cartoon moments, hidden themes, and classic animation analysis, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what cartoon I should cover next.